Conversations with Brooke Allen. I'm Brooke Allen. Obviously, we are on the road again, this time at the beautiful Grand Hotel at the Mackinac Policy Conference. And what an amazing time it has been talking to so many officials. And of course, you can't beat the view here. I have had the chance to talk with officials, mayors, county executives. It has been incredible, a credible lineup that we'll be sharing with you. Let's watch. Hey, Brooke Allen here. I am hanging out at the Grand Hotel for the Mackinac Policy Conference for 2024, and I'm with Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin, and thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. So you just released your TV ad.
I did. Our first TV ad of the Senate race.
Yes.
Came out yesterday, and it just sort of introduces me to people who may not know me. In your area, lots of people know me, but outside of, up north and everything, it's just, and it's a little bit about my biography and just working for two presidents, one Democrat, one Republican, service in the CIA, just kind of what my life is.
Your resume.
Yeah, a little bit, or just what drives me to run, just service.
You are like a lifelong public servant.
Yeah, it is something, I'm what's called a 9/11 baby. I happened to be in New York City on my second day of grad school when 9/11 happened.
Okay.
And it changed my life, and I wanted to get into public service, and I got in, and I've never gotten out. So it's just sort of explaining, if you're going to elect a new senator in your state, one of two senators, you should understand what they're about and their motivation, and so that's what it lays out.
So as far as, you have said you feel like the United States is living crisis to crisis.
Yeah.
Do you still feel that way?
I do. I don't think anyone thinks what's going on right now is normal. I just think that the tenor and tone in the country is really angry. In Michigan, we're very used to having Democrats and Republicans in the same family, and my dad was a Republican, my mom was a Democrat. It was never why they fought, you know what I mean?
Right.
And now it's gotten very polarized and angry, and Thanksgiving dinner has become uncomfortable, and I don't think the average person likes that.
Right.
I think the average person just wants to, see their family succeed, their country succeed, and not stress out that everyone's at each other's throats. So I think we're going through a period of political instability. Won't be here forever. Thank goodness.
Like it's been a while, though, right?
If you look back in history, which I tend to do, usually these periods are about 10 years. Oh. And I think we're about 6 or 7 years in. Okay. So I feel like we're
coming to the end,
yes.
maybe?
Yes,
okay.
I do. I think we're going in the right direction.
So as far as everything coming up, how are you feeling about everything?
I feel good. In the Lansing area, in my district that I represent right now, I've run 3 tough races in 6 years. So you get kind of battle hardened. You get used to running. You don't get too upset about any one thing or too happy about any one thing. You're kind of steady Eddie through the tape, and that's what we're doing. And we're getting down to the last 5 months. Which is great.
Okay, so let me ask you this. How is it for you? You said you kind of try to keep an even keel.
Yeah.
But as far as, the stress of running and just always being out there, how does that affect you?
Well, look, I think as a former CIA officer, and I did 3 tours in Iraq alongside the military, armed. I've had to deal with stress in my life before I ran for office.
So maybe that was just a precursor to running for office, right?
It certainly helps.
It toughened you up.
Yeah, it toughens you up, and it also helps you keep things in perspective. To be honest, a lot of my peers will do anything to win their election. And I think once you've, been in places like Iraq and seen real consequences of things, it gives you some perspective that, you still, no matter what, it's just an election. And, we just had Memorial Day, and I had friends that I lost in Iraq, and their families are never getting them back. Politics is important, but it's not everything.
So what, I know one thing that's super important to you, middle class, right? And how do you get that message out that everyone matters?
Well, look, I think in Michigan, we invented the middle class, right? We invented this idea where you could work on a line in an auto plant and afford the car you were building.
Right.
Radical concept.
My grandfather did.
Yeah.
And
that was a key to the middle class. A good job with benefits, a union job often. And it was, to me, that idea that you could be anyone from anywhere, and get that middle class life is as American as apple pie. And right now it's gotten harder for people to get in the middle class or stay in.
Or stay in the middle class.
We know a lot of people, right, where maybe dad and granddad were in the middle class, but they've fallen out. That sense of anger and grievance is real when you can't provide for your kids what was provided to you. And so I'm just a really big believer that the middle class is the absolute center of gravity in the United States, and we just have to be a place where you can get in. And I'm going to work on policies and sort of obsess about policies that help us build that middle class, build it back.
Build it back, right? So as far as one other thing, and I have 12-year-old twins, and so I know kids are important to you and keeping them safe. And that is an ongoing issue, I think, for everybody. As far as, how do we keep them safe? And how do you, how do you see that, or how do you fight for that as well?
I mean, look, the thing that was just here at Mackinac, right before I came to see you, a woman grabbed me and she said, "You don't know me, but I'm a mom and I live in Oxford, Michigan." And my son was at the high school during the shooting, and my stepson was at Michigan State during that shooting. And we called a ton of families who had children not just in one shooting, but in two in a span of 18 months. And look, in Michigan, many of us, including myself, we grow up with guns, right? I mean, it's part of our, I have only good memories of learning to shoot skeet with my dad and target practice with my brothers. We have to break this idea that you either are a gun owner or you care about kids being safe in schools and communities. We need the gun owning community, who is, for the most part, 99% of gun owners don't want their gun used for anything
other than
having fun, and enjoying themselves. We need to reframe the issue and say, look, gun violence is the #1 killer of children in America under 21. In America, by suicide, by accident, in our communities, in our schools. Normal societies attack the thing that is harming our kids. When you and I were growing up, #1 killer of children was car accidents, right? Because we didn't wear seatbelts as much. We didn't use car seats as much. You'd have a small accident, a child would fly through the window and could get killed in even a small accident. So what did we do? We passed federal laws and state laws and some regulation. And then we taught ourselves how to wear seatbelts, right? I mean, I got a gold star in 3rd grade if I wore my seatbelt. I think we need to attack the issue of gun violence the same way we attacked car accidents in the 80s. It's just, if something's killing our children, we can't just turn away from that.
Right. And the fear is real for kids.
Very real.
I mean, my kids, they're in middle school now, and there's numbers on the windows, so you know what room they're in. And as a parent, it's scary.
It's terrifying.
Right?
Well, the thing that I noticed, and actually the Michigan State students taught me this. We were at an event after the shooting at Michigan State, and they said, raise your hand if you've ever done an active shooter drill when you were in high school. And of course, all the young people raised their hands. None of the people my age, certainly no one older. Maybe you did a tornado drill or a fallout drill, depending on your age.
Right.
But I didn't do that.
No.
And so the people who are making the rules and running everything have never had the experience of even doing the active shooter drill the way I know your 12-year-olds have.
Yes.
So I just think, one of the things I've been supporting is let's have a parent-teacher night and have the parents experience the active shooter drill and feel what that's like, because we'll all see how insane it is that we're telling our 12-year-olds to run, hide, and fight.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. So I just think common sense should take hold here. No one, doesn't matter what political affiliation you are, no one wants their children harmed in school. And no one wants them traumatized by just doing these drills that they have to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. I know we're at a lovely place. Beautiful weather, right? Amazing.
Perfect Michigan. Perfect pure Michigan.
It is pure Michigan all the way.
Totally at its best. It's awesome.
At its best, and always a pleasure to speak to you. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
We are at the Mackinac Policy Conference, of course, on the Grand Hotel porch, and this has been a pure Michigan event for everybody here for the Mackinac Policy Conference for 2024. This is Caffeinated Conversations with Brooke Allen. So many more interviews coming up. Thanks for being with us, and let's watch this one. Well, it is another fabulous day here at the Mackinac Policy Conference, of course, at the Grand Hotel. And I am lucky enough to meet Kim Trent in person. She is the Deputy Director of LEO. And Kim, what is LEO? Tell me what that is.
LEO is the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. It's a fairly new, every time there's a governor, it seems like there's a name change for this department, but people add on or take away. But it's one of the more important departments in state government because we have everything from the Labor Bureau, so making sure that workers are getting everything that they need and that employers have assistance, to the unemployment insurance agency.
It is unemployment too,
UIA
right?
is part of us. We have our employment and training, so all of the programs that we have to make sure that we are moving Michiganders into kind of 21st century jobs.
Right.
That's part of the work. And then I run the Prosperity Division, which is, I know, right?
Prosperity.
I know.
What does that mean?
That's in my title. I'm the Deputy Director for Prosperity. So
right. So so what does that mean?
So I have in my portfolio things like the Michigan Poverty Task Force. So really trying to be intentional about state policies to address poverty, to lower the rate that we use is the ALICE rate, asset limited, income constrained, and employed. So those working Michiganders, people who go to work every day but cannot make ends meet. And so, we really have 14 State Department directors at the table to try to come up with because a lot of times in state government, people work in silos. And I have something going on in the Department of Health and Human Services, and then something going on in the Department of the Secretary of State's office, but there's not that collaboration that needs to happen. And so that's why I'm really excited about the task force. We've had 64 recommendations so far. We're actually going to be putting out another report soon with policy recommendations for the governor.
So people hear about, they're trying to do all this hard work and lift the lower class, middle class, and help Michiganders.
Right.
But I mean, you guys really do. You do the work, but with the economy and everything going on today, people are skeptical sometimes.
They are, but I have to tell you, COVID, I started this job 2 months before COVID started.
Oh, you did?
I did. So it was an interesting time because, obviously it was a very stressful time for particularly people who are just barely making it. But there were all kinds of governmental supports. And so it kind of showed us the way forward, how we could be really supportive of people. One of the things that came out of it, I think, one of our most important accomplishments, I believe, is raising the state's earned income tax credit, working families tax credit, from 6%. I mean, when it was first introduced in the early 2000s, it was at 20%. It got dropped down to 6% of the federal tax credit. And now we're up to 30%. And so we really believe that action alone will lift about 1 million children in Michigan out of poverty. So
that is amazing.
It is an important, but it's just one element. I mean, poverty is multidimensional. It's not something that you just wave a magic wand. It's not just all about money. I mean, there are a lot of wraparound services that have to be provided. I know that the mayor talked about mental health and how, and the governor has been so intentional, particularly post-COVID, about really focusing a lot of state resources on expanding access to mental health care. People are isolated. My son, I have a 15-year-old son who just was not socialized the way that I was because he spent 3 of his formative years at home with us.
Yeah, I've got 12-year-old twins.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, wow.
Oh, well, at least they had each other to talk to. My poor son only had 50-year-olds to talk to. So bless his heart.
He's like, what are we learning today? What's happening now?
It was a rough period.
And I know, we're out of the pandemic, but stuff still lingers.
Absolutely.
Right? And the socialization, I know we're starting to see the effects on children. And, the poverty is still, people were doing okay for a little bit during COVID because of all the extra money, right?
And that money has now gone away. So.
And now everyone's kind of, I don't know if they're worse off or the same.
So the ALICE rate is a number that is generated by the United Way. And they actually, their most recent report that just came out last week showed that we actually had a slight uptick in the ALICE rate. And ALICE, again, are working poor. So our poverty rate has really kind of stayed steady. We're at about 13% of people who are below the poverty line. Now, the poverty line, the federal poverty line, is a ridiculous measure because that's almost destitution. I mean, it's not.
What is it? What is the number?
So it's like $13,000. So
There is no way.
There's no one who
can survive on that.
Yeah, not in 2024.
No.
So, and it's been the same for decades now. So, I mean, everything, if you've lived longer than 20 years, you know that what you made 20 years ago would not really be sufficient.
Right.
Now. So, we really have tried to, so we don't even use that as a measure.
Okay.
Although, of course we don't want people living under the poverty line either,
No,
of course.
definitely not.
But what we really think about is people who, have sometimes 2 or 3 jobs.
Yes.
But they still can't make ends meet. Inflation has been an issue in recent years, but even before that, I mean, it's difficult for people to be able, although we have seen wages increase, which we're very happy about.
Right.
But of course, costs have also increased.
Exactly. So it's like dip,
exactly,
right? So that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
So you guys, there's been a $15 million grant?
So we actually had a total of $50 million.
50?
50.
50. Okay.
So $35 million of it went to what we call my nonprofit relief grants.
Okay.
And we worked with the Michigan Nonprofit Association to come together. They really, because that's their world, they have deep roots in the nonprofit sector. You didn't have to be a member of M&A in order to be eligible.
Okay.
But we had hundreds of organizations that got grants between $5,000 and $25,000. And the idea is for all those organizations that really suffered because of COVID, just an opportunity for them to just get a little stabilization money. So it didn't really have this, usually when you give a grant, there are a lot of grant reporting requirements.
Right?
Well, there wasn't really any of that with this particular grant because it really was all about, we know you suffered, here's some money so that you can, keep going, right?
I mean, that's so important.
They were more important than ever during COVID a lot of times.
Yep.
A lot of
the
these
food
nonprofits,
and the kid organizations.
Exactly. So that was one. So that was $35 million went to that. But then we had a $15 million pot that we had where we gave usually about $1 million grants.
Okay.
And the idea there was those were larger nonprofits. The other thing that I was excited about with the relief grants is we were able to work with mom and pop. So, sometimes from like Detroit, you might have a street mother,
right?
somebody who's on the street who's always taking the kids to the park, or and she doesn't have necessarily, she might have a 501, which you had to have a 501c3.
Okay.
So, but she might not, she doesn't have a board necessarily, or she might have a board, but she doesn't have like
the board is the kids in the neighborhood.
She's not getting grants from foundations or anything. She's just,
real quick, can we just talk? Grants are hard to write.
Oh,
right? So I mean, not to interrupt you, but it's such an interesting aspect.
Well, it's a skill set.
It's a skill set, right?
And so a lot of times the people who are very successful have the resources to hire someone who knows how to do it because it's not, I have a background in journalism, so, you can get arrogant. Oh, I can write. That's no problem.
I can write.
There is a
tough.
rhythm to it, and there is a skill that you have to know.
And because that is so tough that a lot of people don't qualify for things that they could, maybe, because they don't know the process.
Or they don't think they have the bandwidth to even take in grants. So that's why this $5,000 to $25,000 pot was important because that was perfect for one of these smaller kind of nonprofits, mom and pop. They have a lot of impact, but really don't have the infrastructure to do big projects. So, but with our impact grants, which is the $15 million grant project that you talked about, that was for more established nonprofits, and the idea was that we wanted to spur innovation.
Okay.
So we worked with organizations that wanted to try out a thesis about something that they thought could be helpful, but they just needed a little money to kind of get things going. So even like in the Upper Peninsula, we had a program that we're doing. We gave money to an organization called the Superior Watershed to help. So when we talk about utility assistance, usually we're talking about gas or we're talking about electricity, but water is a very important utility that is life-giving and saving. I mean, you have to have water. It's not an option. But there are places, even though we're surrounded by water everywhere in Michigan, there are people who, there's water affordability issues, there's access to, clean water. The governor has made that a huge priority for her
and of course, obviously, we saw that with Flint, right? I mean,
absolutely.
So that kind of spurred
and even in Detroit, where we've had, in the past, we had a lot of shutoffs and that kind of thing. So, they're paying for people. We had a woman who hadn't paid her water bill in something like 18 months.
Oh, no.
And they were able to step in and help her get caught up. So, I mean, the idea, but then also it can't just be getting people caught up because they'll probably be land in the same
Go
situation.
down again, right?
So it's like trying to figure out how can we help, structurally so that, there are long-term solutions for these problems. And that's what's
important,
yeah,
right?
It is.
So would that be considered, so you help somebody pay their water bill and you hope that they don't end up behind on it again?
Well, no, then we're giving them strategies. So there are ways that you can do water conservation. There are ways that you can, there are technologies that are in place to help, so, those are the kind of things that we're trying to, even with plumbing.
Yes.
I know one time I lived in an old house and we had a toilet that ran.
Yeah.
And I got a $1,400 bill 1 year.
Mine was $500. Yes. I'm like, what is happening?
That is something that happens to people. But I mean, I had never been a homeowner before, so I didn't know.
Yep,
I didn't know that was,
I was opening it like, are you kidding? I'm yelling at the twins, right? Like, turn the water off. And they're like, where?
Are you taking baths every 10 minutes? What's happening? Right. Yeah.
So for people who get that shock and don't understand, maybe like look around and when you are a first-time homeowner. Or on your own for the first time, like a college kid or something.
Correct.
Right? There's all these things you don't know.
Exactly. And so we're trying to be innovative about stuff like that, just working with people so that we have long-term solutions and it's not just always a cycle of
fixing,
getting behind and then getting someone to help you out.
So how has it been for you in government? You were a journalist. You started out as a journalist.
I started off covering politicians and then I actually ran for office.
Did you really?
I was on the Wayne State University board, which is a statewide elected office. So I did that for 7 years, just about 7 years.
Okay.
And I worked for Senator Stabenow, former Congresswoman Carolyn Kilpatrick, and now I'm here in the Whitmer administration.
So when you look at the progression of your track, what do you think?
What do I think? I feel that I'm very lucky. First of all, I feel as though I work for Governor Granholm too. I'm forgetting someone. I forgot about
I'm forgetting the governor.
I was actually a member of the governor's cabinet, so I don't know how I forgot that. But, I think that I work with extraordinarily talented leaders. And a lot of my approach to service, I think, was born. I've always cared about people, I think that's why I went into journalism.
I think
people malign journalists.
Get the information out.
The three, I think that I always laugh because I said the three professions that I think are maligned the most are journalists, politicians, and maybe lawyers. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm 2 out of 3, right? Yeah, maybe I'll go back to law school so everybody can hate me. But no. But I also think all of those professions have the potential to be incredibly impactful, incredibly important, and make positive change. So I think having started as a journalist covering politics, I really learned a lot of what I don't like and what I thought was important and, ethical considerations and that kind of thing. So I always tell people I think journalism is the best first career for anything you want to do in life because it teaches you so many important skills. Like I actually used to be painfully shy. So
and you have to get out there and ask those questions. It's tough sometimes.
I had to ask the questions of Coleman Young. That was my first job was covering. So trust me, I definitely grew up very quickly. I was 22 years old.
You're like, not shy anymore.
I got over that really quickly. I got over that really quickly.
It has been a pleasure to talk to you.
You too. Thank you so much for the invitation.
And just what a role model you are. For sure.
Thank you. I've been watching your career too, and so happy that you have this new platform.
Thank you.
I'd love to come back and talk to you again.
Oh yes, I'm booking you, man. I'm booking you.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. You too. Take care.
Wow, this is just an amazing view here at the Grand Hotel. Of course, we are on the porch for the Mackinac Policy Conference, and it has been about 3 or 4 days of interviews and getting to know legislatures and checking in with Oakland County Executive Dave Coulter, also Elissa Slotkin, and so many others that we've been able to sit down and have a real conversation with, coffee in hand. Let's watch. Well, I am lucky enough to be joined by Oakland County Executive Dave Coulter. Dave, of course, big news for you on the island and a big press conference all about 3D printing.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
It's a simple idea, but it is amazing, and we created the program in Oakland County, so we're kind of bragging. It's called Project Diamond, and the idea of it was birthed during COVID, when a lot of our small manufacturing companies were suffering. They weren't producing much and worried about laying off people. So instead of just giving them money to keep the doors open, we gave them 3D printers, and we tried to convince them, and we have convinced them, that if you use these printers to make some of the parts that you make now, two things will happen. Number one, the cost will come way down.
Okay.
For instance, we talked about an example today where a guy was making a part for cars. It was about $100 to produce on the big stamping machines. On his printer, he can make it for $1.
Seriously.
$1. So that gets a business person's attention, right?
For sure.
You're
Got
gonna
my
save me
attention.
$99 on a $100 part?
Yeah.
Okay, so they were open to doing it.
Okay.
But the magic of the program is this. The computer that he has, the 3D printer that he has, is connected to other 3D printers. They can all work simultaneously together. So for an order that he or she couldn't get because it was too large, global kind of sized order,
Right.
they can get a piece of that now because they can be part of a network that bids on those products. And so not only do their costs go down, but they can compete for more contracts. It's a game changer for small manufacturers, and we're trying to keep manufacturing in Michigan, helping Michigan to compete globally with manufacturers, and Project Diamond is the way to do it.
Okay, so Project Diamond. And I have this handy little pen here that says always moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you think of when you think of Oakland County, right?
That's become kind of our theme, is just let's keep pushing forward. Everything's not going to work. Everything won't be perfect, but let's just keep pushing forward. Sometimes my staff will say, another idea, Dave, another thing. And I'm like, look, we didn't come here to keep the seats warm. We came here to sort of push our county forward because these are tough times, and Michigan, I feel like, is at this precipice of we could continue to be arsenal democracy, the leading innovative state that we used to be, or we could continue to keep falling behind. And it's up to those of us in leadership now to keep pushing Michigan forward. And so I'm really proud that the governor saw this program that we did and said, this is what we really announced this morning is we're going to take your Project Diamond project and take it statewide. This will work for manufacturers all over the state.
All over the state. So it's not just, you're not just keeping it in Oakland County.
So today we expanded it from Oakland County to
statewide.
To Wayne and Macomb were there with us because they're going to go get in on the program.
Okay.
And the governor wants to take it statewide.
And that's amazing.
I'm really proud of the fact that she saw the value in it, and that it was birthed in Oakland County. So very proud of that.
So when you think about Michigan, and you said, you know, always pushing forward or stay behind, where do you think we fall right now?
It depends on the category. Some things we're falling behind.
Okay, give me an example.
One of them is population, and obviously that was a big topic of conversation up here on the island last year, and then a big report was produced, and I don't want that report to just collect dust on a shelf like a lot of reports do.
Right.
It's important for Michigan to grow, and we're not growing at the rate of other states, and we need to. We need talent. So what can we do? One of my favorite pieces in that report that I feel passionately about is transit. Young people want other transportation options besides a car, right?
Yeah, you've been talking about this for a long time, right?
20 years.
Yeah.
But we're at a point now, I think, where people are finally getting serious about it.
Okay.
So let's do transit. Let's do affordable housing, because it's gotten really expensive for young people to stay here or move here.
Right.
So let's talk about affordable housing. Let's talk about transit. Let's talk about these things. And I would also throw in immigration, because the only reason Oakland County is growing is because of foreign-born residents. You live in Oakland County.
I do.
Know it's a very diverse place.
It is, very much so.
Indian community, Chaldean community, Jewish community, a very diverse place, Asian Americans, and we need to encourage more of that. We need them to come to Oakland County and help us grow and prosper.
So how do you envision that happening?
That one's tough because immigration has gotten so political.
Right.
It's got caught up in the whole Washington, D.C. narrative of illegal immigrants and all the like.
Right.
I think we need to change the narrative to say immigration can be a great thing. We're here because our forefathers were immigrants, right?
Yes.
How do we encourage the immigrants of tomorrow to come here in a legal way, in the right way, with the skills that we need to help us compete as a country in the 21st century? That's the way we should be talking about immigration.
Right. So what do you think of, if you had one thing right now that you could change in Oakland County, what would it be?
Wow. You know, I mean, we don't need like a single, none of these projects or problems really have a silver bullet. I've been at this too long to know there's no silver bullets. If there are, somebody would have thought of it by now.
Sure.
It's what we just said. Just every day, try to keep moving forward. Try to tackle these problems. New problems will come up. New opportunities will come up. Just keep pushing forward. We can't get discouraged, and it's easy to get discouraged. The political climate is crazy. The social climate can be nuts, but I'm an optimist and I'm collaborative, and I'm willing to work with anybody of any party or any wherever that wants to try to work on problems together. So it's not a single thing. It's just every day being willing to sit down and talk and move forward.
It's the pen. Everyone needs a pen. Well, it's always a pleasure, Dave Coulter, to talk to you.
Thank you.
It's, I knew you as mayor in Ferndale.
You did.
And
we had some good coffee.
Yes, we had some good
coffees
good
together
coffees together then. Good coffees together
It wasn't
now.
just fine Mackinac China, but it's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. So one more question.
All right.
All right. Any future political goals for you?
Well, I'm up for re-election this year.
Yeah.
So my immediate goal is to get re-elected.
Okay.
I hope I've done enough to convince the voters of Oakland County to give me another 4 years. So that's what I'm focused on.
So that's your focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we'll talk in another 4 years about where you're going
We'll
then.
talk next year. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
And of course, at the Mackinac Policy Conference being held here on the Grand Hotel over a 3-day period, it has been an amazing time. And of course, we have talked to so many officials. Of course, we just shared that interview with you, and we've got so many more coming up. And let's check this one out. Well, we are at the Mackinac Policy Conference at the Grand Hotel, and I have been able to meet so many different people, from officials to David Miller, who is actually the president of the University of Michigan Health System. And Dr. Miller, thank you so much for joining us. And let me just say, what a huge job that must be.
Thank you, Brooke. I'm thrilled to be here and really enjoying the Mackinac Conference. Not only an incredible group of people focused on key issues in Michigan, but lovely weather here in northern Michigan.
I know, right? I thought it was going to rain all week, so we got lucky with that.
Very much so.
Right?
And thank you for the opportunity to join and talk. You mentioned the University of Michigan Health. I'm very fortunate to be a member of the team there and to work with, I think, one of the greatest teams in the world. And so I think as we navigate the complexities of healthcare, our greatest strength is our team, and so to be here and be able to share part of the story is a great thing. So thank you very much.
Oh, you are welcome. And actually, my kids do go to the University of Michigan Health System,
Excellent.
So they are in that system. I will disclose that in full transparency. But you guys are obviously statewide, worldwide at times, right? But you have partnered with Sparrow.
Yes.
And so how has that benefited the residents of Michigan?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question, and I think this growth that's happened at University of Michigan Health, Michigan Medicine, is not dissimilar from what's happening in many other health systems inside Michigan and outside Michigan and in other academic medical centers. But what I think is really important is we view this as very mission driven. Our mission is to advance health to serve Michigan and the world. And so we've had to ask ourselves over the last 5 or 10 years, how do we help the care delivery, the tremendous expertise at Michigan Medicine reach as many patients and communities as possible? And one of our challenges, quite frankly, has been that we're extremely busy in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
Our hospital is very busy. We operate at a high occupancy. There's a lot of demand to be seen in our clinics. So we've asked ourselves, how do we achieve the ability to provide the right care in the right place at the right time for as many patients and communities as possible? And one way to do that is to expand.
Okay.
And we've done that through partnerships. We have very productive and outstanding partnerships with Trinity Health in Southeast Michigan and in West Michigan, and also through what we're calling full integrations with other previously independent health systems. So University of Michigan Health Sparrow in the Lansing and Mid-Michigan area, and University of Michigan Health West in Grand Rapids. And what we think is key is that across that entire system, can we bring more services and programs to patients so that they can receive the care in the community where they live? and the need to drive, for instance, to Ann Arbor becomes less and less frequent because we're expanding services in a way that are high quality, safe, and meeting the needs of patients in the communities.
So I will tell you that we go to a U of M pediatrician. They are in Howell.
Yes.
I live in Berkeley.
Howell practice well.
I live in Berkeley, and so we do that drive because we don't want to change doctors. And to patients, that means a lot, right? I mean, I'm willing to do the drive in rush hour traffic on 96 to get the kids out there because I love their pediatrician so much and don't want to change. And so that speaks to that kind of, right?
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you for being part of our family, and I know the practice and how just outstanding pediatricians, and I think what you describe is exactly what we're trying to make a bit easier. So, on the pediatric side, for instance, we've started in partnership with Trinity some expanded pediatric subspecialty services in Oakland County in areas like orthopedics and urology and cardiology. So again, trying to reduce that need to drive back and forth to receive the services. But another good example is our recent announcement of a facility that we'll be working toward in Oakland County at the site of the former Kmart headquarters in Troy.
Oh, in Troy, right?
And so, you know, as you described, Brooke, we know that there are about 180,000 patients who in any given year drive from Oakland or Macomb or Wayne County over to Ann Arbor for an appointment to talk about their diagnosis and treatment plan. Well, for many of those patients, the recommended treatment would require return and repetitive visits to Ann Arbor, and that's a big challenge. It's a challenge for families, it's a challenge for our patients, and by moving services directly into the community, think about a patient with cancer, for instance, who might need chemotherapy or radiation therapy. By us now providing those services in the community, just as you said, you don't want to leave the practice in Howell. Patients don't want to leave the doctors at Michigan Medicine, and by bringing that closer to home, we think we're going to add a big impact for patients' experience and for access to these really high-quality services. So we're excited.
That is exciting, and I had forgotten about the Troy because I remember hearing about it and thinking, oh, maybe.
Yes, so we're looking forward to being a partner in Oakland County and for Wayne and Macomb County, just as we've been in the greater Ann Arbor area for a long time.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you know, I know a lot of times, and especially after the pandemic, that it was a problem getting appointments.
Yes.
Right, and I know that that is still an issue with phone systems and patients knowing even the right number to call.
Yes.
You know, so any idea how to navigate that, or any helpful hints?
Well, thank you for raising some issues that are really important and really visible to our patients. And I'll say it this way: our strategic priorities at University of Michigan Health are referenced in this concept of building our base, or BASC, where the B is belonging and inclusion, A is access, S is safety and quality, and E is experience. And that access part speaks a lot to what you're talking about. How do we make it easier for patients to have their first visit and then to have their follow-up care needs met? And so we're doing that in a number of ways. One is we have achieved improvements in our call center that you referenced, the time by which the phone calls are answered and the issues resolved. We're seeing progress. We're always improving and always have further opportunities for improvement, but there's a lot of work in that area, and we're measuring our performance, working with our local teams to hold ourselves accountable to continued improvements. I think it's also important we're starting to try to use some technology. We're looking at ways to expand self-scheduling for patients. Now, it's not widespread right now, but we're understanding the opportunity and starting to think about how we might pilot some opportunities there. And we're looking at ways that AI might be useful. So, for instance, a lot of our patients will reach out about medication refills. If they're routine, can we find ways that we can use innovative AI technology to move those forward in a way that not only helps patients, but also reduces some of the burden that our team members see on all the electronic communication that happens. So work in progress. Thank you for sharing that feedback. And,
I'm sorry.
And I can promise you that our team members are asking me and others the same questions. How are we going to continue to make this easier and more accessible for our patients at every level?
And I appreciate that. Thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, these are important questions.
But you mentioned AI, and I know that I've done many interviews where AI in the health system now, and in the operating rooms, and just overall. So and U of M is such a cutting-edge facility. So where do you see AI in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think you know, there's so much promise with AI, and there's so much we're still learning about where it can be applied and how to make sure it's, you know, particularly in clinical care, how to make sure it's safe and that we're getting the best answers for our patients. I think there are a couple key areas. One is, I think AI offers great promise for this really important issue of healthcare, which is the well-being of our team members. And I'll give an example from University of Michigan Health West, where they've implemented an ambient AI technology, where when the physicians sit down in their office with their patient, they can have a conversation without looking at the computer. It's actually then is documented using AI and translated directly into the clinic note. And I was a skeptic the first time I showed up. I went to the office with one of my colleagues who was examining a patient with knee pain, and I said, let me see what this note actually looks like. Well, it turns out it's actually an excellent clinical note that reflects what the patient, it reflects the history and physical exam, and it was completed, within minutes of the visit without a lot of work by the physician. So we're looking at ways that AI might help well-being. We're also looking at ways that it can help us with our access. So we know that some patients can be safely taken care of in an outpatient surgery center versus the inpatient hospital, but can we use predictive AI to help us safely identify those patients?
Right.
Working really well. And then third is, I think, important areas of predicting patients who might respond to the best treatment. So for instance, who might have a severe infection that requires aggressive resuscitation, a condition called sepsis. So the AI impact, I think, is going to be from well-being impact to operations impact to choosing the right treatments for patients. It's an exciting time, and we're focusing a lot of energy in this area.
So as far as, you said it's exciting, but is it a little bit, because a lot of people are skeptical.
Yes.
So is it a little bit unnerving too at some points, because it's kind of like, okay, well, we have to make the right decision, but you're obviously doing the research.
Absolutely, and I think this is where one of the great opportunities and challenges with AI is what are the parameters you have to be put in place before something can be implemented, right? It may be a little bit different in a concept of a business operations where you're automating a process that's done all the time, like something related to billing, right? Right. That's very different than taking a new set of data from AI and then using that to change how we treat patients. There you need kind of careful assessment, research, almost like a continuous improvement loop to make sure that the intended effects are being achieved and unintended outcomes are being avoided. That is where I think there's a lot of careful thought. You need a good governance structure, you need transparency in the data, and we're working to build that at U of M while learning from others who are doing it well as well.
And there's so many collaborations now in the medical field. So it's interesting to me because, I think that's kind of how the world is now.
Yes.
Everything used to be so competitive, but now people are like, you know what, hey, why don't we team up on this? And the medical field is no different.
No, I think collaboration ultimately is that unlocks so much innovation and success. I was having a conversation earlier about some of the programs we've developed a lot at University of Michigan in partnership with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, which are actually called the Collaborative Quality Initiatives. And they seek to borrow information, expertise, and experience from a wide range of settings to solve long-term problems in medicine, whether that's reducing infections after a biopsy for men at risk with prostate cancer, or whether it's reducing complications after heart catheterization. Collaboration is at the key to all of this, and it's one of our key areas of focus at University of Michigan, so thank you for calling that out.
No, thank you. This has been a great conversation. I'm learning all of this stuff, especially where my kids go.
Absolutely.
So, I'm invested.
Well, thank you. And as I said at the beginning, our mission of advancing health to serve Michigan and the world, in each of those areas, that advancing health to me says, how do we continue to innovate and continuously improve to serve Michigan and the world is how do we expand our reach to reach more communities and more patients, and ultimately to drive better health care locally and across the state. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much, and I guess I'll see you in Troy.
Looking forward to it. And thank you for the opportunity to share the story of our great teams. I'm very grateful to be part of University of Michigan Health.
Oh no, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brooke.
What an amazing time here at the Mackinac Policy Conference 2024. This has been my first time here. A beautiful view, pure Michigan all the way. The weather has been perfect, and of course the conversations have been invigorating, and we've learned so much. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you next week.